Welcome back to another edition of the Wolverine Postgame Podcast here on the Wolverine.com YouTube channel. Before we get into it, Anthony Broome here with former Michigan Wolverines defensive lineman Ryan Van Bergen. We're going to talk about, a fun game for most of it, a frustrating game for parts of it, but a dominant win nonetheless. Before we get into that, of course, want to shout out our friends and sponsors of the Saturday postgame show, Lewis Jewelers. Keith and the team over there, where Ann Arbor gets engaged. So thank you so much for your continued support of our show and of the postgame podcast. We're going to deviate a bit from how I usually start this show, because what I usually do is I'm having tech issues before, I'm scrambling in the press box, scrambling to get Ryan in here, scrambling to do all sorts of things, and I stumble over my words and I give you stats and I do all that. We're not doing any of that today. This is purely on feel. There will be people nationally, people locally even, that will move the goalposts on this game after dominating Penn State, beating them 41-17. You can do that all you want. That was an ass whooping. This Michigan team, today was the type of day. Today was an announcement day. They can get back to Indy. They can get back to the college football playoff. They, honestly, guys, what I saw today, this is a team that can win the whole damn thing. There were two plays in this game. The pick six that was run that play a million times. That doesn't happen. A throw bounces off a quarterback or bounces off a guy's helmet right into the hands of a linebacker. 62-yard run from whatever it was from Sean Clifford. This was a destruction, a demolition, whatever you want to call it. And this is one of those, as we said, it was going to be one of those Big Ten East pecking order games. You're playing for the right for your game against Ohio State to matter the most. Right now, Michigan's game against Ohio State is going to matter the most. Penn State, again, sorry, producer Hutch is a Penn State fan. I don't want to go too hard on the Nittany Lions here. That was an awful, terrible performance by them. I think it says a lot about what Michigan did. Michigan was phenomenal. I mean, this was the fifth-ranked run defense of the country coming into the game. Michigan runs 55 times for 418 yards and 4 touchdowns. It was dominant. I'll stop short of saying it was thorough. It was a 16-14 game at the half. This Michigan team, I was waiting to see another gear from this team. And I'm going to thump my chest out for a bit because I did say this would be a multiple score win. I said that Penn State, Michigan was a cut above Penn State. I thought that we would see that on the field Saturday. So I am going to take a bit of a victory lap for that. That's enough of the rant. People want to hear the former Michigan player. People want to take the questions. I'll run the show. I'll be the point guard. I'll do all of that now. I just wanted to make it clear that I saw a team that has a chance to win, to do everything that is in front of them. Everything that is in front of them, this team is capable of. So that's where we start today, Ryan.
I don't think that I would have told you sitting here at this point in October that I would be confident that this Michigan team is better than last year's Michigan team, but I stand on it right now. This team is better than last year's Michigan team. We're further along than where we were last year. I feel like we're more dynamic on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, we haven't lost a stride, considering how much talent that we lost. That's a good Penn State team. They have tremendous recruits year in, year out. They have athletes. There's 11 guys on that team that would start pretty much anywhere they wanted to go in the country, not only in the Big Ten. And for us to come out and outplay them 95% of the snaps, and not just outplay them, but beat them down, physically just maul them and have our way with them, that was nothing short of amazing and nothing short of dominant. And aside from 2 plays, that's a 41-6 win. That's we had some miscues in the first half in the red zone. I mean, talk about something negative. We kicked a few too many field goals in the red zone when we started, but we miss on a swing pass to Edwards. It's probably going in. We had some miscues that kept us from high 50s in this game. It overall just really impressive. And I think finally, as Michigan fans and people watching this program, we can nationally assert ourselves as we are a top 5 program right now with where we're at right now. And everything is on the table, as you said. And I think that it'll be very interesting to see how Ohio State fares going to Penn State, because I do think Penn State's a good team. They played a poor game today, and they were outmatched and outcoached. And, we've said that about our team in the past, but not last year and not this year. This team, I believe, is further ahead than where they were last year, more guys contributing, and they still have a higher ceiling. This isn't the best they could have played.
I love that you brought up, the conversation about being one of those nationally elite programs. If you want to be a program that's in the conversation with Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, to be in that next tier, you have to look like this in games of this caliber. That was, again, the 19-2 Michigan is in their last 21 games. Just an incredible turnaround from a program that we thought was, dead in the water during that COVID season, which winds up being, books will be written about that as a turning point at some point. I'm sure John U. Bacon's already working on. No, he said he won't write about Michigan again, but there's a story to be told there. This is a continuation of what last year was, and I always said that what we saw from last year's Michigan team didn't have to be a blip on the radar. That could be something that serves as a springboard, and we've been waiting all season for. You didn't play anyone in the non-conference. Oh, well, is Maryland really that good? Oh, well, Iowa stinks. Oh, you struggled a bit at Indiana. Outside of the miscues that we discussed, I don't know how you can pull this apart and really. They're 7-0. You have Michigan State next. You have Rutgers, Nebraska, Illinois. Illinois is going to be a tough game. That's a team. Is that the best team in the Big Ten West right now? It might be. This is as good a feeling as this Michigan team could have going into a bye week. It's as good as a feeling as the fan base could have. And the best part about it is that on a day that you run for 418 yards and have 563 yards of total offense, we're still sitting here talking about meat being left on the bone. There's still another gear for them to go to now. But when you have an offensive line, and people will often say that, it has to look better, it has to look much more better and well polished to beat Ohio State. When you have an offensive line that is as good as Michigan's is, and I want to talk offensive line, and then we'll start getting into questions and going from there in the show. When you have a group that is as locked in, especially in run blocking as that group is, you get to set the terms of what a football game looks like. It doesn't have to be basketball at grass. It can be, you might want to play basketball on grass against us, but we're setting the terms of this football game. I could not be any more impressed with what we've seen from that offensive line over the last number of weeks.
This was a signature game, too, for them. They've gotten better each week. They were definitely under scrutiny at the beginning of this year, not sure where everybody was going to fall into their positions, and trying to get different guys rotated in, we'll call it the preseason of our first 3 games of this year. And they've really hit their stride. And this game, I think, was a signature win for them. I think I always butcher his name, so I'm going to not say it. The center and Trevor Keegan. Keegan was a man amongst men today. If you go back and watch the film, there's a lot of times where you watch Donovan Edwards or Blake Corum get to the second level untouched, and it's because Keegan is clearing space. I think that offensively, we definitely have a little bit of a tendency to cut off of him because he's always making people move, and played really dominantly across the board. But Keegan showed up enough that I was like, when we do this podcast, he needs a shout out because he played like a man possessed today.
Absolutely. I want to start out with a question from QED, who says, one for Ryan. After such an emotional win like it was today, how do you as a player get back to normal business afterwards? Is it hard to refocus? And I guess doubling down on that, they do a bye week now. So what comes next?
Well, I think this is a well-timed bye week. We've got guys that I think are right on the edge of getting healthy, and guys that are just coming back and kind of dinged up. And again, this is just the first half of the season. So second half of the season, we need to get re-prepared for, kind of gear back up. I think emotionally, it's probably easier to focus after a win like this as opposed to a nail biter where you win with some type of walk-off situation or something like that, because that emotion is instant, charges you up, you get all fired up from that. Today was dominant. Today was asserting that all the work that we've been doing, I'm sure tons goes in. As a former player, I know you've got so many lifts, so many practice sessions, so many film sessions, and to keep your intensity up through every minute of every segment that you're asked to perform week in, week out, day in, day out, gets to be a grind. And if you don't see results on the field, continuing the grind at that high level can be more challenging. But when you have an assertive win like this one, where you go out and you dominate an opponent, this just tells you the work is paying off. Everything's on the table. This team's does not lack focus, at least in my opinion, from a leadership perspective, on the goal is what? To beat Ohio State, to win the Big Ten, to get back to this college football playoff, because we got a taste and we want to do better this year. And I think the focus is there. I think the drive is there. And this is just an assertive win that says we're going to keep doing what we're doing. It's working.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I guess you just have to stick to it and get a little bit more healthy. I mean, Michigan's been fortunate, knock on wood here up in the Penn State coach's box, actually. Shout out to those guys. Hard day's work for them up here in the location of today's podcast here from high above Michigan Stadium. I like the way this team handles its business. They all they ever do is play what's in front of them. When things are a bit flat, like it was in the first half against Indiana last week, when things got a little dicey at times to start this game, those guys are, they very much have a next play mentality, and that goes back to the way that they're coached too. I mean, I think that this staff is doing an amazing job with the kind of the mindset they've installed into this team. So. Good question there from our friend QED. Let's go to I'm going to go to Jeremy's comment first. He says, stop with the JJ concern from the chat. He had one fluky throw. Do you know how many drives he kept alive with his arm and legs off script? Yeah, JJ wasn't perfect today. I have a feeling that when we go back and look at his numbers, or Pro Football Focus goes back and looks back at this, probably not going to be very pretty from a grades perspective. He was 17 to 24. 145 yards, no touchdowns this week. I believe for the first time since he's been Michigan's starter. Someone can correct me on that. Had the one pick, which again, ball gets tipped, bounces off a guy's helmet and into the arms of a linebacker. Still 17 for 24, 71% of his throws completed. Still fairly accurate. Still made plays when they needed to. But after the way that first half went, Michigan put the ball in the hands of its running backs and had them. I mean, if you're running the ball that well, it would be malpractice to stop.
I agree. And I also think that something to take note of is you look at it when we get into the red zone and how our play calling changes. J.J. McCarthy's not getting opportunities to throw the ball in red zone situations. And to your point, the reason being our offense is having so much success with the run game. It's safer to hand the ball off to these talented guys and let them do their work with the offensive line, creating the holes that they were creating. So he didn't get a ton of opportunities. Again, in the first half, I thought we missed one swing pass to Corum on the first, it was either Corum or Edwards, but to the back, easy swing pass that we normally convert on. But give J.J. McCarthy his dues. There was definitely times where we needed conversions. I don't know if we have that statistic, but the conversion rate on third downs and the amount of first downs that this Michigan team had, a lot of those came from McCarthy using his legs, getting guys open. And I think there's even more opportunities when he goes back. I think Penn State was conservative, played a little umbrella, and wanted to see if they could stop our run with 7 guys in the box. And over time, they found out that just wasn't going to happen. There's some times where he probably could have scrambled for those first downs, but overall, he did his job. I thought he played very well. And when he's called upon to make these plays because the run game's getting shut down, he will be there. I just have faith.
Yeah, we'll dive into the box score a little bit here, Hutch, if you want to pull that back up, just from the game comparison stuff. I mean, Michigan, 563 yards of total offense, 145 yards through the air, 418 on the ground. I will do the offense notes after the game and see where that kind of stacks up. I thought I saw on Twitter before we went live that it's only the second time since the year 2000 that Penn State has given up that many yards rushing in a game. So again, not only did you break in terms of what their tendency has been to shut down the run, it was a historic mollywhopping of sorts. Not crazy about the penalties, 9 for 61 on Michigan, but 28 to 10 in the first down department. Michigan was 11 of 17 on third down. 1 of 1 on 4th down. They ran 79 plays in this game. At one point, I think they had, math is hard, 24 plays in the first quarter. They were on pace in that early on in that game to run like almost 100 plays in this game, which is where obviously you don't want to see them settle for field goals. Jake Moody, thank God for you, but that's something you need to clean up. But other than that, I mean, Michigan was getting 7.1 yards per play, 7.6 yards per run, actually 423 sack-adjusted rush yards because we're still counting sacks against rushing totals for some reason at the college level. They were 6 for 6 in the red zone, but overall, time of possession, 42 minutes to 18 for Penn State. They did have the one turnover. They actually fumbled twice too, which you don't want to see, but still not generating enough turnovers on the defensive side of the ball. But other than that, a workmanlike effort from Michigan's defense. What did you see from them that allowed them to sort of stymie that Penn State run game and really they just never got anything going?
I thought the battle was going to be at the 5 technique and the strong side defensive end position, and seeing how Mike Morris, Oki, if he happened to be in there, seeing how some of these guys responded, Upshaw, to taking on run blocks and double teams from tight ends. Because I knew that, and I think everybody knew that Penn State was going to rely on getting their run game going if they were going to have consistent offense. And I thought that those guys just did a really good job holding the point. At defensive tackle, we all know Mozzie Smith is too much to leave on a double team. I feel like guys don't get to second level that are working a double team on Mozzie Smith, and we held really good edges and were really sound, I thought, defensively. And when you're run pass, which we've seen on our side of the ball, in years past previously. So Penn State, I thought, was lacking the creativity, lacking the balance early, and that just got them in trouble, I thought. Again, we happened to go to half 16-14 and start the third quarter 17-16, but overall Penn State offensively was limited to one big run by Clifford and then maybe 18 to 20 other positive plays. So really sound against the run, which I thought this would be our biggest challenge. And to be honest, it doesn't surprise me because our defense goes against our offense, and our offense might be the number 1 rushing team in the country. At least there's a case to be made that we're there.
Yeah, absolutely. Ian McDonald, call back to the question I asked earlier this week. I didn't see any Jimmy Rolder today in place of Junior Colson. The pass defense was very solid over the middle. Linebackers held up. I agree with all that. I did record the game, so looking forward to going back and looking how that all played out or what led to that once I get home from here, actually. Jason Campbell, this goes back to the thing about penalties that I said. Are you guys concerned about the amount of penalties on Michigan? It's the only immediate concern I have. But the team is definitely looking better than last year at this point. Yeah, really the last 2 weeks have been, I'll say, uncharacteristic, but then it's been 2 games in a row. You don't want that to be a trend. I thought a couple of them were pretty bad, honestly, just poor officiating. I mean, there was, again, officiating is such an adventure for these crews now. They spent like 5 minutes reviewing a first down or a 4th down play that was a yard short of the sticks there. So, yeah, concerns about penalties at all, Ryan?
A little bit. I mean, especially when you're going to finish the year on the road in Columbus and you got to get a win there, and you can't have 9 penalties, especially on the road. But the other thing about this game is I thought one thing that became very clear is Penn State was simulating our cadence on some of the false start calls. That's what Jim Harbaugh seemed to be. That's what I was reading lips between the expletive words, was that the cadence was being called out by Penn State. So you can't do that. And that created some of the false start penalties. Illegal substitution on defense, you might get those every now and again, but it's not something concerning. I would say if there was a concern in the penalty department, it's that there has been on shots recently, long balls, there's been some holds, there's been some pass interference calls. But my approach personally is always make the ref pull his flag out and throw it. Play as physical as you can and then back off as needed. But don't overly finesse if the refs are going to let you play with some physicality on the edges. So overall, not super concerned. Definitely want to see it cleaned up, but still, I'd say that's a very small blemish on what otherwise is a very good, solid performance.
Leo Cortez wants to know, why isn't JJ McCarthy taking deep shots? He says that much success running should open the deep ball up, shouldn't it? All I'll say is I know we're going to do this every week if Michigan doesn't throw for 300 yards. When you're running, it's like obviously it's similar to the Washington game last year in that when you're running, and even the Ohio State game from last year, which all three of these games, by the way, Michigan, blue jerseys, blue pants. Here's your sabermetric stat of the day.
Love those unis, by the way. I didn't get to wear those. I'm jealous.
Yeah, did you? What were the alternates when you played? Were
we had the bumblebees for the Notre Dame night game?
Those
the yellow
cool.
striped bumblebees. Yeah,
that was yeah. Those were all right. I'm a big fan of the blue on blue.
Me too.
Michigan has the best home uniform combo in college football, in my opinion, with the helmet, the maize pants, all that. But when they do break out the blues, again, today was a maize out, so I guess the ingredients were there for the all maize jersey. Nah, this looks better, and it's a big game look for them now. I mean, they're 3-0 in that combination over the last 2 years. What was the original point I was making? Why do I do this to myself? Oh, they've run the ball very well in those uniforms. When they can't stop the run, like I get that theoretically speaking, they load the box to stop the run, but Michigan just keeps finding ways to get it done with 7, 8, 9, sometimes 10-man boxes. And that speaks to your running back, who is a Heisman Trophy contender. I predicted he would have a Heisman moment in this game. Blake Corum rips off a 61-yard touchdown run, 28 carries, again, 166 yards. I think the last 3 weeks it's 30 carries, 29, 28. Didn't see the TV feed of it, but sounded like he was having some projectile bodily fluid issues early in the contest that was shown in slow motion. So shout out to Fox for that. But and a rival game for Donovan Edwards today too. 16 carries, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also, he had the 21-yard catch on a wheel route. When your backs are playing as well as they have, and this is how I see it, Ryan. And you can you're much smarter than me when it comes to this, but make teams down the road account for that, and you can open up the other stuff later. But when it's working, again, I think it's malpractice to go away from it.
I think so. I understand the concern, but I also think I saw a few times where we did some drop back, some play action from under center this week that we hadn't been doing. And there were some times we were looking deep, but just didn't find anything open. From what I could see, Penn State had a lot of, when we were in an 11 personnel look, they were going with 2 high safeties. And when you see 2 high safeties and you like your matchup in the box, you check to your run. So I see that. And then when we go with our big tight end personnel, our 3 tight end personnel, yeah, they've got 8 in the box, but we have 8 to block, so we kind of basically say, all right, 8 on 8, and let's see if everybody wins, and Corum, if not, can make you right a lot of the time. So can Donovan Edwards. So I see what we're doing. And I also think, not to be that guy, but today, if you noticed, the winds were kicking up. There was some inconsistency with the weather. There's just so much more risk involved in putting the ball downfield, and it's not necessary. The gamble, there's no reason to gamble that, because we're moving the ball consistently. Now, if we're coming out and had a couple 3-and-outs and we're struggling to move the ball offensively, then I would start getting a little bit more concerned. But I do believe the plays are somewhere in the book. We didn't have to access that chapter today, but I believe the chapter exists, and I believe the chapter can be executed if and when needed.
Yeah, I think maybe the biggest surprise today was no catches for Luke Schoonmaker after a couple really big weeks out of him. I'm not using this as crapping on JJ McCarthy, but I don't know how you could watch the first half of that game and go, you know what I think we should do is air it out more. They leaned on the run game because it was working, and I don't have an issue with that. The nice thing about what he brings to the table is that, one, that the deep pass, like the threat of that is still there, and 2, when guys are covered down the field, he gets on his high horse and turns plays into first downs with his legs. So like seeing that, like seeing he continues to have success when they move him outside of the pocket. It wasn't a good JJ McCarthy game, but he didn't lose you the game. He made it a little more interesting early on, but yeah, so that's where I stand with that. Jazz 16 says the Wolverines are becoming and are a great defensive team. Laughing at the echo chamber that thought it would be a low-scoring defensive game. Not me, mind you. Check the staff picks this week. Pundits are mostly very bad at predicting stuff. How do you feel about this defense as a whole? Because I'm still seeing I'm seeing very good throughout the year. This was the first great game they've had from, I'd say, outside of the Sean Clifford run. I mean, wire to wire, the best defensive game they played all year.
I think they have every argument to make that they're the best Big Ten defense and nationally threatening to be one of the best defenses nationally. I think Georgia's up there, obviously. Alabama's got a great defense, but Michigan is deservedly a top five team. They're top five offensively, top five defensively, top five special teams. We are a very well-rounded program with pretty good depth, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And I think on any given Saturday, we can beat anybody in the country right now with the way we're playing. And I think Jesse Minter deserves a huge amount of kudos for coming in, losing guys like Aiden Hutchinson, David Ajabo, and coming in for his first year and creating a defense that is as sound and fundamental as they are and playing as well as they are 7 weeks into his first year. So the future looks very bright for Michigan defense, and the present is very bright, and that's exciting as a fan and as a former defensive player myself.
Yeah, I want to ask you about. There's a look that I've really noticed it the last couple of weeks. Maybe it's happened before then. So much going on this time of year, but Minter has been. It's a Jesse Minter and Mike Elston co-production where they're taking like 3 edge guys and loading them all up on one side of the line of scrimmage, and that is. Indiana had a hell of a time with it. Penn State had a hell of a time with it. That is something. It's been impressive. What is that, Ryan? I mean, did you guys run any of that, or what's going on with that?
Madison used to have a similar Joker package is what it was called, but the idea is you're still only going to rush with 4 or maybe 5, but you're actually going to use your guys and create picks to get you through the offensive line, through the different stunts and who goes first, who goes second, and what the gap assignment is for each guy. But the idea is that we can get you to a mismatch in your offensive line slide because there's not too much offensive line can do in pass protection. It's not like they twist or want to pass guys off and change their gaps. So you know where they're going to be. So if you know where they're going to be, then you can kind of take advantage and you get one guy to ear hole the tackle and then one guy loop around, and you just can predict where there's going to be potentially a hole. So when you know they're in a passing scenario and you want to get pressure with 4, this is a creative way to do it. And I think, game 2, game 3, we would sit here talk about, are you worried about Michigan not getting enough pressure on the defensive side of the ball? And I wasn't, because I didn't see too many games or see too much development of that defensive line play. But now you see us, and we've got all different kinds of smoke when it comes to our 4-man and 5-man rushes. We could have guys coming from anywhere and twisting, overlapping, stunting, delayed blitz, spying. The whole package is there. So defensive pass or pass defense, pass rush, I think is as developed as anyone in the Big Ten and maybe in the country. And we've got a lot of guys doing it.
A lot of wrinkles. And that's been the biggest thing in the transition from the Don Brown years to the, I guess we'll just call it the McDonald and Minter era. Guys kind of cut from the same cloth there, is that they throw so many different looks at you, whether it's up front, whether it's the coverages they mix up, the stuff they do pre-snap. They are throwing offenses off balance before they even snap the football, as opposed to, before that it was, hey, we're going to play tough and physical and we're going to beat you up at the line of scrimmage, and gosh darn it, if we get beat, we're just going to come back on the next snap and do it harder. Yeah, I'm a fan of what we're seeing and how things are progressing on that side of the ball. Quick one from, I hope I pronounced your name right, Kieta Mura, who says, Blake Corum didn't get hurt, right? It looked like he sort of rolled his ankle. I think it was on his last run of the game, but nothing, he jogged off the field. He looks fine. It was a blowout at that point. Game was well in hand. Bye week coming up. I don't expect, I didn't see him getting any treatment on the sidelines, so I don't think there are many concerns there right now with him, but extra week to heal up to, which is huge for him. That man has earned his ice bath or whatever he does post game these last 3 weeks. And, that guy he's just cut from a different cloth. Anthony Spencer, with such a well-rounded squad, is wide receiver the weakest group on the team? I want to be very deliberate in how I answer this question. No, it's not the weakest spot on the team. Ronnie Bell has been reliable, outstanding. Roman Wilson, good to see him back out there today. I don't think I'm not going there with the wide receivers. I know people there's still a faction of this fan base that wants to see Michigan have, their version of the Jackson Smith and Jigba, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson wide receiver room, but that's not what they do well. And Ryan, I think today was kind of a performance where a couple weeks ago, I think it was after the Maryland game, where you said something along the lines of, you don't have to mirror Ohio State. You just need to do what you do very well. It can look different. And like I said before, when you have an offensive line that is as good as Michigan's is, you get to set the tone and dictate what the game looks like from an offensive standpoint. So I guess just thoughts on the passing game, the wide receivers in general.
I can understand that the thought process, but honestly, I feel like these guys have been asked to do certain things in the role at Michigan that are, again, goes to your point, but that aren't maybe in the same roles at Ohio State or at Clemson or at Alabama. Our guys are getting a lot of screen passes and tunnel screens and asked to do a lot of blocking on run plays and block downfield. And I think our guys fit our system very well. I do see that we may lack that 6'4" go get it type guy on the edge. But I also think that there's a couple times on 3rd and 1, I saw Andrell Anthony lined up with press coverage and no safety anywhere nearby. And I was like, do it, just throw it. And we didn't happen to do that, but it's in the playbook. And he's a guy that can go up and go get it. Ronnie Bell has proven himself. He can go up and go get it. They're not being asked to go out there and win the games for us. They're being asked to go out and perform their role and block and make catches on easy throws, get yards after the catch, be smart about it. And I think they're doing all those things right. I have no concerns that we have a weak wide receiver group. I think that we've had unfortunately such a showcase at the running back position that the spotlight has not been pointed in their direction, but there's a lot more season left. And I think there will be some big contributions from some of these receivers later here in the season.
Yeah. I mean, it's a staple of Michigan's offense that their wide receivers are blocking down the field and doing kind of the extra nitty gritty things. And I'm not putting words in a guy's mouth, but you tell Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm just throwing a name out there, a 5-star wide receiver. Yeah, we're going to run a lot of bubble screens, and we want you to block and get on your horse down the field. It's just a little bit different. Michigan has the right guys for the offense they like to run. So it's nice to have someone to lean on in Ronnie Bell, who had, again, not a sexy stat line, 5 catches for 39 yards, but a couple of those were what they needed to be when it mattered. So not concerned about the wide receivers. I still think there's enough depth there where or depth and talent where your number's called and those guys will make big plays. This is a passing offense that threw for 300 yards last week. Like, what are we even talking about here? So we'll go back to Kieta, who says, do you think if Tennessee beats Alabama, they will jump Michigan in the rankings? I guess it depends on what it looks like. I would probably say yes, though, just because of the optics of Alabama, down goes Bama, things like that. Quick thoughts on that, Ryan?
It's possible, but I will always stand on my own personal soapbox of don't worry about the rankings 7 weeks in. It's not anything we can control. I don't personally think Clemson beating Boston College, I believe, was legitimate platform for them to jump us this week.
After a 3-score win on the road for Michigan, too.
Right. So with Florida State, I mean, Clemson plays Florida State. They may be playing right now or this evening, but unless Clemson beats them 50-0, I don't know that Clemson can stand on a platform that says that they're better than us and we don't jump them again. But Michigan has no reason to exit the top 5 anytime soon. And whoever's in front of us, luckily we get to play at least one of them as long as Ohio State continues to win. So we'll have our opportunities to climb the leaderboard, but this 1 spot, 2 spot, 3 spot, personally, I just don't care. We just got to keep playing good football.
Yeah, and as Hutch, for the video edition crowd that's watching this live or after the fact, as we podcast, Tennessee's up 21-7 over Bama in the first quarter. So maybe, but at the end of the day, who cares? Just win football games. So all that other stuff is for you guys to debate on the comments, message boards, what have you. So another one from QED says, looking ahead to November, what are the areas the coaches defensively and offensively will likely look to work on and improve over the next couple of weeks? We don't know what their points of emphasis are going to be, but Ryan, on both sides of the ball, I mean, what do you think are some things that need to improve?
Offensively, I thought we did a better job this week. We talked about last week telegraphing where we're running the football, when we're running the football. And I thought this week we did a lot better job of showing some balance on first downs. I thought we did a better job this week also of dressing of pre-play motions. A lot of times when Corum's getting the ball one way, Ronnie Bell or Roman Wilson's performing jet motion the other way. So I thought we did a better job of not giving the defense a 100% key to come get Corum or Donovan Edwards. So I thought that was a little bit better. I think we continue to do that. It's something that Harbaugh used to be notorious for. And it's something that is not part of the Michigan offense, and something that I want to see some more of is how often do you see them break the huddle, line up, and then they come back from under center, tight end switches sides, or all three tight ends switch sides to try to get a gap misalignment. That used to be staple Harbaugh back in Stanford and even early on in his Michigan days. And I think the pre-snap stuff goes unnoticed, but it's important. It can get alignment issues, and it can make defenses have to think on the fly so they're not as comfortable when the ball's snapped. So I think that's something offensively we can do is pre-play and then staying more balanced on first down and giving our guys better chances. Defensively, it's got to be turnovers. It's such an anomaly this year to be talking and singing such high praises of our Michigan defense. And I truly don't think that we've created a fumble through 7 games. I mean, not that we're not tackling, not that we're not, doing well on defense, but for whatever reason, we're not creating fumbles. We have, I think, 2 interceptions so far on the season. Maybe I'm wrong on that statistic, but as smothering as a defensive we've shown ourselves to be, for whatever reason, we can't give our offense extra possessions. And I think that's something that we're great, somewhere there, but to be elite, that has to become a component of the defense moving forward to the second half of the season for us to certify this is an elite Michigan defense this year.
Yeah, and dropped a pick today. I think it was DJ Turner who should have had one. It's you got to, especially when you get in a tight game, which Michigan hasn't really been in one, quote unquote, but those are just game-changing plays that have to be made. So, yeah, I know they say it's an emphasis. They work on them in practice. They feel like they'll come in bunches. We'll see what happens the final 5 games of the season. So, hey, guys, who knows? Michigan State will probably be serving them up on a platter to you. So we'll see what happens there. Let's go to a quick comment here from Adam Shepardson, who says, wide receivers are huge on this team. The culture within the program shows when the game plan calls for wideouts to block, and they do so unselfishly every single play. I could not, if I had the ability to react to that with a like or a love, I would do so. I totally agree with you, Adam. Captain Banana Peel wants to know if there were any injuries today. We'll see on Blake Corum after the game. Jamon Green spent some time in the injury tent. Looks like he had a shoulder or an arm injury, but he came back into the game. So other than that, guys who didn't play were still out, like your Cade McNamara's, Nikai Hill-Green, no Eric All today. So, yeah, that's all that there really is to report injury-wise. I didn't see anyone else get banged up during the game, so that's good for Michigan. Another one from Kieta, who's been the MVP of this chat so far. Again, guys, we do have a little bit more time. Probably about 5 to 10 more minutes we'll be on here. So last call for questions, donations to get yourself a shout-out. And up in the front of the line are still on the table there for you. But Kieta says, does it bother you guys seeing Urban Meyer at so many of Michigan's games this season? Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, I guess is how I would put it. I don't know. He can take notes all he wants, but, being down there on the sideline today, he saw a lot. He saw an ass whipping similar to the one he saw when Ohio State was here last November. So take notes that it just reminded you of that, I guess. But I don't know. You have any thoughts on Urban Meyer being Michigan's biggest groupie by necessity now?
Well, I think he used to be a fox in the hen house, and now he's a fox in a house full of foxes. I don't think that he has a opportunity, I don't think, to get any privileged information. I mean, obviously he can scout us, but so can anyone that watches the TV copies of the game. And to be honest, I think it adds an interesting wrinkle to their game plan preparation. Is Ryan Day really going to go out to dinner with Urban Meyer and look at his notebook and worry about what his opinions are? If so, is that part of his normal game plan? Is he shaking himself up, psyching himself out because he's not trusting his gut and he's listening to the old coach? Let them deal with all that. We just keep playing our brand of football, keep getting better, week in, week out. And I think Ohio State is worried about us. And I think that's probably one of the first times they've been worried about us in a while. I don't think they were worried last year. And now they've all on that team been made aware of what can happen if you don't worry about us. And we're coming. We're getting better. And I think this team still has more ceiling on both sides of the ball. And we're going to give them everything they want in their place, I think, come into the year.
Anthony Spencer has one for you. Ryan, every team on the planet, quote unquote, emphasizes forcing turnovers. What separates those that do it consistently? How does Iowa do it with the talent that they bring in?
Well, I think one of the things that, so you're not wrong. Everybody emphasizes turnovers, but some coaches do it you have periods of practice, 30-period practice. Every period is 5 to 10 minutes long, and you schedule out your practice based off of these increments. There's some teams that every practice has a period dedicated to turnovers every day. There's some people that do one period every other day or one period a week. And I don't know what our current regimen is, but I would say that Iowa dedicates day in, day out to creating turnovers. Now, I also think that they probably have some leaky yardage or give up some big plays because they're punching the ball instead of tackling. There is a trade-off there, but I do think it's not something that's being ignored by our coaching staff, but it's an anomaly, and it's something that as we're all getting these rose-colored glasses of how good our defense looks, and I'm wearing the same lenses, it's just there's that element is missing, and it's a small concern if we can't get that part of it going, because how helpful is it? The statistics go in your favor so strongly when you're a team that creates turnovers and gets you extra possessions. So that's the only reason it's a concern for me on what otherwise is a fantastic performance halfway through the season for a first-year defensive coordinator.
I want to share a comment from Mike Morris. We do have a shout out from David Mays, who dropped $5 into the chat. We appreciate you. Real quick, David, I know I'm going against the rules here, but I just want to share a quote from Mike Morris for everyone here. Mike Morris says that Penn State had, quote unquote, Twitter fingers this week, and it came to a head in the tunnel at halftime. And he said they wanted to talk at halftime because they got lucky. Of course, there was a bit of a fracas in the newly minted Lloyd Card tunnel at the half. So I like to see them have a bit of an edge in post-game press conferences. Sometimes it can blow up in your face, but embrace the villain role. So David Mays, thank you for the super chat, the $5 donation. He says, did Michigan throw into the end zone today? It would help the red zone issues if they did. Yeah, I mean, I guess part of what worked in the second half is that you didn't have to drive the ball into the red zone and call plays from there. You just took care of it from 60 yards out instead. Play calling needs to be a little more creative. The 2-point conversion play call was maybe the best play call they've had, period, all year in terms of situation and things like that. Need to see some more creativity down there with J.J. McCarthy and the wide receivers.
I think so. We miss air call. And normally Schoonmaker is one of the guys that we go to, and he's consistent, but for whatever reason, just didn't see the targets. But the other thing is, again, when it comes to risk reward, throwing the ball up for a jump ball or 75% chance, 80% chance Corum or Edwards is going to pick up your 3rd and 2 or your 4th and 1. I see why we go with that statistic. If we don't have the running backs doing what they've been doing, it's more of a concern. But we did not throw the ball into the end zone, I don't think, one time today. And I hope that if we need to, we got guys that'll go make the play. I think we do. But let's just say, let's sit back and enjoy and be excited about the fact that we don't even have to use that bullet in the gun because the other ones are so good and so efficient.
Absolutely. So, David, thank you so much for the donation and the question. Last call for questions. If not, we'll end it on this one from Jonah, who says, I know the running game is elite, but will we ever see McCarthy take over? Maybe next year. They put the ball in his hands in the second half of last week's game, and I know it was against Indiana, but let's tap the brakes on that. Every game looks different. I know in their biggest games of the year so far, Iowa and Penn State, hasn't been a ton of impressive stuff, but you still see there are throws that he makes. There are things he does with his legs that Michigan just hasn't had a guy capable of that in terms of pure playmaking since Denard, but in terms of a guy that can make all those throws, maybe Drew Henson. I don't know. Watch games. Don't look at box scores. Don't look at bad plays. Watch games. It's very clearly they have just a different level of quarterback play than last year. They have I'll go as far to say, I don't think it's a hot take, they have upgraded quarterback play from what they got last year. Box scores be damned.
I think so too. And McCarthy taking over a game. You want McCarthy to take the game away from a Heisman Trophy frontrunner right now, from Blake Corum, and be another Heisman Trophy running frontrunner? I mean, we're kind of in that position right now, which is such a spoiled position to be in. That's why I say appreciate, because this is just an unfamiliar position, I think, for most Michigan fans. But McCarthy, I think, if asked to step up and Corum's down or something's happened to even both Corum and Edwards and we had to rely on McCarthy, he's ready for that. Is it necessary to put that weight on his shoulders currently? No. So I don't, as exciting as that game may be to watch this kid come up and throw the ball 45 times and let him air it out a little bit, as exciting as that may be, it's not the statistically highest probability for a good win percentage, and that's what our team's doing. And to me, I don't have a problem with that, because I feel like we're coming out against a team that's ranked in the top 10, dominating them for all but, handful of plays. And I think the world's going to be a little bit more respectful of Michigan's program, and we're going to be in the top 5 contention for the remainder of this year, as long as we keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, obviously up next in 2 weeks, Michigan State, probably a night game. Biggest question, 7:30 or 8 right now. From there, you go to Rutgers. You will play Nebraska and Illinois at home. Illinois, going to be a tough game. Who knows? Maybe you play them that week, and 2 weeks later, you see them in Indianapolis. Who's to say? It's all on the table right now. And then obviously Thanksgiving weekend, Columbus, Ohio State. You have given yourself the opportunity to now run the table heading into the Ohio State game, which is something they have not done since 2006, which is it's absolutely huge for them. So this is a good place to call it for us today. Again, Michigan wins 41-17, moves to 7-0 on the season after beating 10th-ranked Penn State. Ryan Van Bergen, again, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the week off next week. That'll be nice for all of us to sit back and recharge. Producer Hutch behind the scenes, we love you. We're sorry that Michigan had to dispatch of your team so easily today. A couple fun plays for you in there, but thorough nonetheless. But Hutch, thank you for all you do. Of course, our live podcast will continue to roll along a normal schedule next week, even without a football game. So thank you to all of you guys who watch live. Thank you to the people who leave a like on this video below, subscribe to our channel, people for After the Fact, the podcast feed, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your shows. Again, thanks to Lewis Jewelers for sponsoring us, the proudest partner of Michigan athletics you'll find out there. Thank you, everyone. Again, 7-0 feels good. It's nice to be almost into late October without having to do a negative show. So shout out to the Wolverines for taking care of business. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will talk to you again soon.